Welcome to the Enlightened Musician Podcast, a podcast all about the music business and learning how to turn your art into an equally successful business, flipping the mentality of a starving artist into a profitable, sustainable career. Each week, we will interview someone that is excelling in their field and talk tips and tricks on how you can implement that for yourself. Because honestly, how can you know what you don't know until you've been enlightened? All right, you guys, welcome to another episode of the Enlightened Musician Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Light, and today I'm so excited to bring on my good friend, Steve Vito. If you've heard a lot of my songs that are on Spotify, you probably have already heard of him via his music because we work together a lot. So let me give his informal introduction. He is a multi-instrumentalist and music producer who focuses primarily on artist development and production, film, TV, and ad music, and creating custom sample packs tailored for music production. So without further ado, here's Steve. All right, you guys, I'm so excited to have on my good friend, Steve Vito. You've heard his highlights, but here he is himself. Hey, Steve.
Hey, how's it going? Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's so good. I feel like we just talked this morning, especially because we are on a cell call each week with each other. So I feel like we talk very
Support
often.
group.
No, which I do love support groups. We have a music support group and we're on there about once a week. So we know each other pretty well. But that's not actually how we met. How long has it been since we met?
It's been 2018? 2.5 years now? Almost 3 years. My goodness. It's been that long?
Yeah. That's insane. Oh my goodness.
Wow.
So I talked about in the intro, we've written a ton of songs together. So Steve is one of my favorites. There are a couple other ones too, so I'm not going to give anybody, but one of my favorite people to write with as well. So we've written a ton of stuff together. It just instantly clicked. But I think we did something, it was a 12 of 12. We were like 12 songs in 12 months. So yeah, it just instantly clicked. But Steve is just like an amazing pop producer. So that's crazy. But I like that we were talking about you do pop music. But I feel like you didn't always start off in pop music. So let's just kind of go into how you became who you are now and where you came from. Where you came from.
Well, my mother, that's initially where I started. But outside of that, yeah, me, when I look back, it's kind of interesting to me. But I actually come from a rock background. Like I was in and out of rock bands. Like I wanted to do the whole rock star thing. And it started kind of as a kid. I feel like growing up in my household, my stepfather, my mother, my sister, and my dad kind of influenced my musical taste. Three of them, my sister, especially my stepfather and my dad, all listened to rock music. And my sister listened to like hard rock music, and my mother listened to pop music. And so like growing up, I kind of had that 75% rock liking and 25% pop liking. So it's kind of funny how like it worked out that way and it made sense. But so yeah, like I grew up just wanting to be a rock star. I want to be in a rock band. I love singing. I love playing guitar. So that started out as me. First I ended up getting a guitar from my uncle. That's how I first started learning how to play guitar. And my dad played a little bit, so he showed me some chords and that sort of thing. But yeah, like I just started writing music, and pretty terrible music. Thinking back to it, like that's the natural progression, I think, of most things is whatever you want to do in life, you're probably not going to be good at it at first. And then you got to work your way to get better at it. It's the same thing. It was the same progression with me where, I have cassette tapes somewhere of me first learning how to play guitar when I'm just this little kid,
Oh my goodness.
I should, I was going to say, I should pull them out, and try
And
to.
we can put it in this segment right here. No, I'm just kidding.
Right here. But then I was thinking, how the hell am I going to play a cassette tape? I was like,
Oh my gosh. Ironically, I actually have like a cassette player in the other room. So if you send it over, I'll make sure it
there
happens.
we go. I'll mail it to you, so you know how terrible it is. If you ever want to not sleep at night, you can put that on right before bed.
I'm excited. We all have those though. We all have them.
True. Like I want to say the first song I wrote was a song called Fluff, and it was about a drunk cat for no reason
I
except
heard about a cat too, not a drunk one, but a cat. Must be
there's
hardcore rocker.
yeah, there's something about like liking rock music and your first song being about cats. I don't know why.
It's like you kinda already knew your leeway was gonna go into kind of pop music, right? No, I'm
Yeah, right, exactly. But yeah, so it started there. I ended up writing that bad music for a while until probably about high school, where I started venturing into finding other musicians. And so I found some other people online to be able to play with. And, I ended up forming the first metal band I was in. And, by metal, I'll say back then I was heavily influenced by a band called Deftones, and
yeah.
Killswitch Engage was just coming out. And like, I don't know, like really like some aggressive music. Um, and so like that's kind of where I started, writing towards in those bands. And in those bands, like, because I was the singer and played a lot of guitar, like a lot of the actual arrangement and writing of the songs relied on me, because at least in the first band I was in, it was me, a drummer, and a bassist. So I was guitar and vocal, and then there was bass and drum. The other guys didn't really write. Like it was at the point where I'd have to go over the bassist's house when we had a song, and I'd have to physically show him, okay, and now you play this fret, and now you go up here and you play that fret, and then you go here and play that fret. So I'm kind of grateful for that, though, because I feel like that helped me like learn arrangement and learn the foundation of writing, and kind of how I write today. So yeah, like I was in and out of rock bands for a while. That was the first one. The most notable band I was in was a band called Scarlet, where we ended up doing some US touring, which was a blast. But we ended up recording this beautiful record. I want to say we dropped, at the time, $12,000 on this album to go record 5 songs in like the same studio Killswitch Engage recorded it, and All That Remains, and all these metal bands that we were really into. And as soon as we got back from tour, the bassist and drummer dropped a bomb on the guitarist and me, because I was only doing mostly just front man, lead vocal, a little bit of a rhythm guitar here and there. But they dropped the bomb, and they're like, we kind of want to do other things in life, so we're not going to do the band thing anymore. We had literally just released the CD, just went on tour, got back from tour from it, and we were going to start getting ready to send a bunch of stuff to labels and management and try to see if we can get something going. And all of a sudden we have this gorgeous record that just sits on the shelf. And so it was kind of a crossroads, I think, for me, because it was either try to rebuild that band thing with the guitarist and some other people at that point, or explore other things and see where I might land. So for a little time there, I ended up doing voiceover work.
As you guys can tell from his voice right now.
It's just that rumbly bass that I have. So I ended up doing a lot of research on voiceover, and I probably did that for maybe a year, but there was still something kind of like missing in my life. And I was still working on like just solo rock music at the time, starting to play around with Logic a little bit, like just recording some guitars and fake drums and stuff, and just putting some songs together just for myself. Like it was really going to be an album that I just wanted to release. I always had this idea called temporary pain. Like ever since I was like a teenager, I always had like this idea for. Initially, it started off as like, oh, it's going to be a book, kind of about my life and all the ebbs and flows. But then I was like, maybe I can make it like a rock album, since I'm doing voiceover. I'm not focusing on music anymore. Mm-hmm. I hit kind of a crossroads like a year in, where I started having some sleep issues, some insomnia.
Oh wow.
And it got really bad, actually, like scary bad. And like I kind of took that as like the universe telling me, you're not pursuing the avenue that you want to pursue. You know where your heart really is. Um, and so I started putting things into music and kind of let voiceover go because I knew it wasn't the thing I wanted to be doing. Like music has always been in me since I first started playing guitar. Like it's just something I always just had to do. And I know other musicians like yourself get that, like, that maybe other people that aren't creative types just don't understand, but it's just something that you have to do. Like you can't picture yourself not doing it. So at that point I decided, I went to college for music production, but I didn't do anything with it when I first went there because I wanted to do the band thing and give, that thing a try first. So I decided, I already have the background in music production, so why not try to do some of that? And it seemed where the need was at the time for when I started in music production, like more seriously, was more in the pop realm. That's just naturally where like I started finding a lot of people and meeting friends. And so like I was like, let's just see where this roller coaster takes me. So I kind of started, getting into producing pop. And like honestly, at that point, like I was so ingrained in like metal, like I almost didn't know what was going on in pop,
Yeah.
So I started listening to a lot of pop and what was going on, and like really just heavily ingraining that into my daily routine, just like understanding what pop music was doing at that moment. And obviously at the beginning of that too, I was producing some pretty bad pop music, because it was more like metal influence, like one thing in my metal music that I always found myself doing is I got very wordy. And so that started happening in my pop where I'd get very wordy, and not like good wordy, like using big words just to use big words, and like not really, or like being too, what's the word I'm looking for? Like too symbolic in my lyric, and like,
Metaphorical and
yeah,
Enlightened.
metaphorical and abstract, and like, those sorts of things. And so obviously, like anything, the longer you do it, the more you learn, the better you get. So yeah, it was just a natural progression because like I just kind of went where the music took me. And it's not that like, I didn't like pop music at the time. Like, I mean, I grew up listening to pop music with my mom on the ride to school every day, like I've always loved pop music, but I was just like so ingrained in metal music at the time because that's what I was playing. Like that's what I was pursuing, so when I started listening to pop music again, I was like, wow, pop music actually has a lot of like almost darker minor chord influence in certain styles of it. I was like, this is actually really cool. And like those thick 808 basses, like I almost found like ways to relate it, to be able to bridge the gap from rock to pop that like had elements of where I came from that I could kind of like build around. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I can definitely tell your influence. We've talked about this a little bit, where I kind of came from a little bit more of a rock background as well, and you can kind of tell the people within pop realm that kind of came from that influence because a lot of times it has more heavier, dark elements or has more like of a feel to it. Like you feel like the punch or the bass, like there's some kind of hit to it that I think only a rock background could bring. But I think it really meshes the two genres really well together. So I usually lean towards that too. I like it.
It sounds good.
No, but it's just so crazy that you came from a full metal, because I mean, I've heard some of the screamo as well. From that all the way, like if you guys get to hear some of his new music, and like I said, if you hear most of the stuff that I release, or Steve Vito, like is the co-writer. So it's just a completely 180. 360, 180, did a full 180, full 180. It's a full 180. We had to work that out there. But no, it's crazy. So let's talk about what was like one of the first experiences you got writing for a pop artist, or your first pop project. Like I want to hear about that. How did that swing? How did that go?
Oh, that was terrible, actually. So, when I first started writing pop, like at that time, I was almost thinking, oh, okay, where can I go find more collaborators or more people in the industry? So I started attending conferences, and
Hmm.
I ended up going to this one conference in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania,
Oh.
the Millennium Music Conference,
Oh.
and I ended up meeting kind of more of a singer-songwriter pop
Mm-hmm.
person, and she happened to be from Massachusetts. So we started talking, and we're like, oh, let's co-write. And I don't know what I was thinking, man, but like, like I tried to overanalyze
Mm-hmm.
pop music and how to write pop music at that time, like when I was first starting to do it. And so like I kind of analyzed like songs on the charts and like what keys are they normally in, and what this happens here. And so like I even like built out this like chart of like which ones happen how often, and like just all this like crazy like
You're
like
doing
not just letting the music like happen, but like almost like forcing it, like I definitely agree it's good to have like tools like that if you need to kind of pull things in a certain direction, but
mm-hmm.
man, like I was not doing it for that. So basically she came over and we had a session, and I pull out this sheet of just different chords. I was like, oh, well, these ones are the common chords. Maybe we could start there. And of course, like, the common chords end up being like, G, C, D or something, just like boring chords. So we start writing this song based around G, C, D, and it's just this very bland, mediocre song. We're both not having fun because we're just like writing from a chord chart that I analyze, of all these songs, and it was a bad experience. And let's say from that, like I totally feel bad for I honestly I don't even remember I don't even remember my co-writer's name, but if you're listening, I'm sorry for that experience. I know it was terrible. I know it was horrible. Please forgive me. But yeah, so I learned really quick, like there's a difference between, uh, um, having your ducks in a row and learning as much as you can about what you're doing, and then overanalyzing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was way over that threshold.
But I think sometimes we have to go through that and do all the wrong things before we know actually how to do the right things. So, like,
Mm.
from that, was there any core values that you learned and you use daily now, like to actually put into writing? Like, how do you write now? What's the stereotypical format for writing with a new artist now in comparison to that?
So I think a lot of things for me, especially since then, and it kind of almost like hinges directly off of that experience. But for me, like I feel like if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right, because
Hmm.
that's why we all got into doing music anyway, is because we loved doing it. So you still have to have an element of that when you write songs, otherwise it's not going to be a good experience.
Yep.
So, I try to approach sessions that way too. Like, don't get me wrong, like I'll come prepared,
Yeah.
with stuff that maybe we can write to, but I'm also not necessarily stuck. So if we go in a session and I bring a couple things and we're not feeling like writing any of those things, like I'm going to be like, okay, well then let's not do that. Let's do something else, like let's just see where the room today takes us and what kind of song comes out. Because chances are every time we sit down and write, we're not going to have, a gold nugget at the end. But
Yeah.
in order to get to the gold nuggets, you got to work that muscle and just keep writing. So, sometimes it'll come from I bring a track and we write it and it comes out awesome. Or sometimes it'll come from we're not writing any of those tracks I brought and we're just building something on the spot, like, I mean, I don't know. Like, I've just learned to be a lot more relaxed and go with the flow of the room.
Yeah. Well, I think too, especially you like to develop artists. So it's kind of like if you just try to force upon them a sound that they don't want to be, I think it's pretty good that you actually sit down with, and I think especially as an artist, it's nice to sit down with someone that's like, all right, let's get what you're envisioning and let's form a product, like a song around that. And I think that's so much more inviting to write stuff. So let's actually get into that too. I know one thing you've been doing a lot recently have been more into that vein. So is that where you're wanting to go in the future? Is kind of more development, artist management kind of things, or where are you wanting to go in the future?
So yeah, like that's actually where my passion is kind of helping artists figure out what they want from their music and their career. So like a lot of what I like to do is a lot of times it's even like mixing and matching. Like if I'm working with an artist, maybe I'll bring in different collaborators into the session to see kind of like where the pieces fit and like what gets the best result, or the best comfortability, that's the word, comfortability with the artist,
Yeah.
so yeah, like artist development and kind of getting an artist ready to be kind of pitched to management potentially, or pitched to labels, or wherever they want to end up, honestly, is kind of what I try to do. Is I kind of try to be a producer, like a lot of people think a producer is just making a track, but that's not necessarily a producer. A producer is kind of guiding the process of creating art with the artist, and that's not just building a track, that's also figuring out what they want to be, what sound they want, where they want to go, and trying to guide that direction into that place that they're trying to end up.
No, I love that. I love that. And I'm excited for all the stuff that you're kind of doing. Recently, we actually just started, or not just started, we formed an album for myself, and I've been loving that sound. And it has this whole like seamless feel to it. But I love that you always come to a session and it's always like the idea is already kind of sparked, and it's off conversations we've had. And it's just, you know me as an artist, and I feel like anyone that works with you gets a product that it's like, wow, that's kind of seeping into my story in life, but to a fun pop electronic beat. Oh my gosh, I love it. But you still are doing mainly pop and top 40 music though, right? Do you ever like venture out anywhere else, or is it pretty much in that realm now?
So I've like I was saying, like I kind of followed where things took me, and so like yeah, I mean that's mostly where I work in, because that's where things are kind of coming in, and I'm meeting collaborators and other artists, and people within the industry kind of have more pop edged artists for me to work with,
Mm.
but for me, I don't limit myself either. Like if someone were to come with the right project, and it happens to be I don't know, an indie rock project or something like that, if it's something that I really believe in,
Mhm.
I'm not going to say no to that project. I'd love to work with an indie rock person that just like it just catches me,
Mhm.
but that's kind of what I look for, though, is like just something that catches me. um and part of me wonders if a lot of it maybe has to do with vocal too, because that's one of the things that caught me growing up with rock bands, is if there was an interesting vocal somehow, it would catch my ear, and I'd be like, oh, that's really cool. Like when I was a kid, there was a metal band called 36 Crazy Fists, and yeah.
That's the name.
And they were like Alaska metal, which is
Ooh,
interesting. But
icy cold. Okay, I'm done.
but the singer had this weird like timbre and vibrato that he do with his voice, and that's the first thing that caught me about that band, and that's why I really got into them, was from the vocal. Something about the vocal having a unique, a uniqueness about it, just kind of got me into it.
Yeah. No, I'm always about a voice too. I love pop music, but if a pop song can have someone that has like this just unique, you can pick their voice out of a crowd kind of voice, or like this like grit in it, I'm like, ooh, love it. It's like the
Yeah,
combination of the best of both worlds.
exactly.
So I'm with you on that. I also want to talk about one thing you've kind of been doing recently, and I think this is really cool. So you've been like making like sample packs. Kind of go into what is a sample pack, which I mean, most of the people here will know what that is, but making one is a lot different than purchasing it off of a site. You know what I mean? So
Oh
kind of
yeah.
all you've been doing in that realm.
Yeah, like I actually never thought about, I guess, like, I probably realized, but I never thought about how much actually goes into making one of those. But so yeah, like that's probably geared more towards producers or people that work with music in DAWs. But basically, a sample pack is a bunch of different sounds that you can use in your productions, whether it's kick drum sounds, or bass sounds, or vocal sounds, or whatever it is that you can kind of just pull from the pack and add to your songs, as you're building them. So yeah, like I kind of felt like there was a need in the sample pack world, and it was just because it was my own need,
Yeah.
and that's why I was like, oh, other people must feel this way too. But I felt like a lot of sample packs were more based around a bunch of different sounds in one vibe. Like maybe it's a tropical. And so they have like maybe 10 kick drums and then 10 snares and then 10 plucks and then 10 basses, kind of all in tropical. And I was like, but what if I just want, a sample pack that does just bass really well? And I know there's going to be like tons of different bass sounds, and I know every time I go to that pack, I'm gonna find a bass I need. So that's what I did, is I decided to build packs around one specific thing and doing that thing well. So for me, that started with bass. Actually, it started with building an 808 pack. So I built out 100 808s in a soft synth called Serum, and then I also bounced them out to waves. So if someone doesn't have Serum, they can use the waveform in their DAW. And then that turned into me building a 100 vocal one-shot pack with a singer, Tara Louise, who I work with, and
She's stellar.
Yeah, she's great. She has a project named Arcana that you should definitely check out. And then I ended up doing another one that was like 100 rises and hits and kind of like transitional effects. And I'm working on one now for the end of the year that's going to be 100 pop plucks. So it's going to be like kind of pluck sounds in that soft synth Serum, and I'll probably bounce them out too to waveform. So if someone doesn't have them, but yeah, like it just came about because I wanted to fill a need in my own catalog.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, why not release them too, so other people can fill that need in their catalog. So
That's insane. But is that just like online, or is that in like, where do people get this? Because that's really cool.
yeah, I mean, it's pretty exclusive. If you go to stevevito.com, like it's kind of not everywhere, so not everyone has those sounds. So
So you
so
don't
it's
want
it's good, yeah, because like if you use those sounds in your productions, you're pretty guaranteed that it's not going to be spread over every single sample pack website and everyone's going to have it. So you're going to find some pretty unique stuff in there to be able to add to your productions. But yeah, stevevito.com is where people can find that.
Sweet, and I'll post that in the show notes for anyone that's driving. Please don't do it now. Wouldn't that just be awful if we found out they were back and they were like, I was trying to look up the sample packs.
I really wanted to see it and I got in an accident. I'll feel so bad. I'll be like, I'll give you the pack for free. It's okay.
Oh, I know. I'll get that call from someone someday. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I love it. So, like, we're just talking future. One thing we were talking about, so we were talking about earlier in the conversation, we are actually on a weekly call, and it's one of my favorite things. It's a group of musicians, and we kind of talk about our goals and what we're doing, and we hold each other accountable. So any musician that's listening to this right now, it's always great to have other people that are kind of on that same tier as you, kind of giving you examples, holding you accountable, but whatnot.
Mhm.
But let's just talk about what's in the future for Steve Vito. Like, what's some goals? What's some things that you're like, this is next for me? He's like, all these questions.
So yeah, for me is one thing I'm always on the lookout for is new artists that kind of are looking for development help, and production help, and collaboration help. I'm always willing to listen to music, so if anyone out there wants to send me some music, feel free. I'd love to take a listen. So yeah, I'm always on the hunt for developing more artists. And also I'm actually with you and some other people in some of the groups that we're in, and working on a lot of different sync projects, which I'm getting more and more into that realm as well. And for anyone that doesn't know, sync is film and TV, or music set to film and TV. I was going to say film and TV music, but not necessarily, because regular songs can be used for it too, depending on what the placement is. But yeah, so I've been getting more into sync work. So yeah, I mean, those are a couple avenues that I'm really starting to invest a lot more time in. Again, I'm following where kind of the journey is taking me, and that's kind of where it's where it seems to be going. It seems to be trending, especially in a in a coronavirus year where not everyone's getting out. It seems like everyone's kind of finding other ways.
But I mean, we've done okay. Like we were talking about the sync thing. You guys are going to be so excited to see we did an ad for a children's dental placement. Man, one of our coolest songs of the year, so that's coming towards you soon. No, I'm just kidding. But,
And
it's
we're animated.
we are animated. I won't lie, that's kinda like my dream come true,
Oh,
just
we
slightly.
made it.
We've made No, I love it. Well, this is one of my favorite questions to ask, and I'm actually gonna ask a two-parter
Mm.
because I think it can go for 2 things. So, at the very end, this is a music business, music, just enlightenment of learning and growing your business. So, the first half, I'm gonna ask if you could give any advice to producers that are either starting out or trying to get to the next level, what would be something that you would give a piece of advice that maybe you wish you had known growing up?
So for me, it's don't just throw money at it.
Ooh.
So when I started producing, obviously, like I said before, I wasn't very good because it took time. So
Mhm.
I started buying like newer and bigger and better plugins, but yet my productions weren't any better. Like, yeah, like maybe the synth sounded better, but some of the arrangement and some of the things that should have been in there weren't really right.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of money up front when really what I needed was time. So if I could, be talking to up and coming producers, there's no substitute for time. I know you want there to be. I want there to be still, you know,
Yeah.
but there's no substitute for time. How much time you invest is how good you're going to get and how quickly. So that's really what it comes down to. So throwing all the money at it that you can and all the fancy plugins that you don't know how to use at the time like isn't really gonna help you. Yeah, like I said, that synth might sound a little better now, but what if the arrangement isn't there yet because you're just not, you know, proficient at arrangement yet, or
Yeah.
at writing chord progressions or complex chord progressions or whatever it is, or key changes, or. So that's the one thing. There's no substitute for time. Make sure
Yeah.
you invest your time, and it'll come. Don't give up, but there's no substitute for time.
I know. I think the 10,000 hour rule really does apply where you can't really be proficient at something until you do it over and over and over and over and over again.
Mhm.
And I know when I was growing up doing music, there was a lot of times where I was just like, why am I not a superstar right now? And
Yeah.
like, I listen back to some of the stuff now, uh, years ago, and I'm like, why am I not hitting it big? And I'm listening, I'm like, that's why. But
Exactly.
only with time can you see that, and I just see a big, huge difference. The other part of that question, since we asked about producers, I wanna ask a question, what would you give advice for artists that are looking for a producer, or just, like, signs that that should be someone you should work with, or just a scenario of what they should experience with working with a producer and finding one?
So I think initially it's okay if you're not ready yet. So many people, like when they just start out their artist career, like maybe they haven't written enough songs to get proficient, or again, going back to time. But it doesn't mean you have to run out and start blasting a bunch of managers and a bunch of publishers and a bunch of labels when maybe your songs aren't that good. One, be honest with yourself, and two, like invest the time. Like there's a reason they say once you get to a certain point, people start coming to you,
Yep.
because it's kind of true. Like, I mean, once you actually have something established and like a sound that people are gravitating towards, then it's a lot easier for people to open your email and listen and take you seriously, and those sorts of things. So like, don't feel the need to just blast people when you first start out about you know sign me, I'm good, sign me. Be honest with yourself. Are you really that good? And it's probably even good to get feedback from an unbiased source that will be honest with you. Like, I mean, yeah, you don't want someone to hurt your feelings, but at the same time, you want someone to tell you, like, okay, you need some work, but
Yeah.
I can definitely hear the potential there. Whatever it is, like, but don't be afraid if you're not ready. It's okay.
No, I agree, and I think, a lot of times there's a lot of advice given, and because people take money, they just want to sell you on things that aren't true, but I think that's one of the best advice. Take critiques. If someone tells you something isn't good, maybe look into it, get it from
Mhm.
multiple sources, and I think that's the best way too. If a producer that you're working with will be able to tell you Like, they're not going to just take your money. And I know Steve is like that too. He'd say, you need to maybe do that part over again, or actually we need a better take because there's not really showing a much either emotion, or it would be better for
Mm,
gritty. Like, getting a producer that can say those things will go a long way because they want the product to be good as well because their name's on the line. So working with people like Steve,
exactly.
all those things.
Yeah, and like that's another thing too is you were saying getting from multiple sources. Like that's one thing I found too. Like, sometimes critiques can be interesting because someone will say, I love your course, and another person will say, I hate your course. What I find is when you get multiple critiques, if you're hearing a lot of the same things,
Yep.
then there's probably something there. So if people are saying, you've heard multiple times, your courses need work. Well, then maybe you should think about looking at your courses, because they need work.
Exactly. Nah, I think that's completely correct. I like how I'm like looking to make sure I've asked you everything that I could ever ask you. Me and Steve talk all the time. We could talk about a whole bunch of different topics. Maybe I'll bring back on. I think it'd be cool to bring you and a couple other producers on and we talk shop about some stuff later.
A producer roundtable, that'd be
Wouldn't
awesome.
that be cool?
That would be sweet.
I'm thinking about it. So I like how I've just like pepped that up and I'm putting this on the air. So it's been put into the universe to have.
Now you have to put it together.
I know. I love
People
it.
are hearing it.
Nah, but I really enjoyed having you today. It's just like I said, awesome to have you. But let's like actually tell people where they can find you if they want to find you, find your sample packs, work with you, which by the way, I highly endorse working with Steve. Again, most all my songs that are on Spotify are written and co-written and produced by Steve. So let them know where they can find you.
Yeah, I'll start by saying like definitely thanks for having me on here. It's been fun. I obviously love writing together. So we could, like you said, chat for hours about whatever. Could chat for hours about cats, but
I love that.
but yeah, if people want to send me music or ask any questions or anything, stevevito.com. You can find some of my stuff up there, the sample packs up there, and also if you want to email me, steve@stevevito.com. Feel free, like I said, send music, send whatever. I'll be happy to listen.
Oh my goodness. You guys, thanks so much for listening. And thanks, Steve, for being on today. It's been a pleasure as
Thank you
always.
for having me.
And I'm sure I'll talk to you in a few minutes.
Oh yeah, sure.
All right, thanks so much.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Enlightened Musician podcast. Make sure to visit our website, theenlightenedmusician.com, where you can subscribe to the show on your platform of choice so you'll never miss an episode. Until next time, this is Lauren Light.